virtually, obviously, here practicing social distance and doing our part by staying home. I am joined by Jackie Lamb, money writer, financial wholeness educator for artists and freelance creatives. And I'm going to put the website down in here, but it's heyfreelancer.com. You can find out more information. And to keep up with latest updates, you guys can follow Jackie HD Lamb. And that's Jackie IE, because there's definitely plenty of ways to spell Jackie. HD Lamb, LAM. Yeah, and again, visit heyfreelancer.com for more information. But today, of course, we're going to be kind of diving into the world of freelance, since this is your specialty here, the good, the bad, the most efficient ways to kind of manage your budget as a freelancer. So, and of course, this is all so you can like spend the time doing what you love, right? Creating. So really appreciate you joining us today. Thank you very much, taking the time on this Thursday, which we did actually find out it's Thursday today if you looked at your calendar. So I'm excited to kind of hear about your journey as a freelancer. What's your background? How did you become a freelance money writer? Talking about that.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, Megan.
Yeah.
My freelance journey, I actually started off as a fiction writer. So I was doing that for about 10 years. And I started freelancing probably about a decade ago. So it's been a while. It was actually from word of mouth. So I had a friend, my first gig was actually writing or copy editing for this arts magazine. I don't know if it's still around. It's called Beautiful Decay. And I had a friend who was an artist, and he's like, hey, my friend has this magazine. He needs someone to take a look at it and copy edit. So that was my first gig. And then I did some side gigs here and there. Like kind of writing random stuff. Like I was proofing romance novels. I was writing a copy for beauty sites, tech sites. So some random stuff. And this was all while I still had a day job. So I was doing that for a while. And so my money writing stuff didn't really kick off until I started a blog. So it was a blog posters. And it was actually a testament to being, I know it sounds, but being like frugal, being resourceful so that you can do what you really want. So I had friends who were extremely frugal, and they had got a severance pay, and they were able to travel for 2 years, like on a shoestring budget, that kind of stuff. Yeah, or friends who they saved tons of money. They took a year off to be a screenwriter and to do that thing or to record an album. So I was really fascinated by that mode of thinking where being frugal or being resourceful leads to freedom. And I got my first gig from a conference. It was called FinCon. And it's a conference for, get this, for people who create content just about money. I know it's super nerdy, and I went there thinking I would just meet a bunch of bloggers like myself who are really going to nerd out about saving money or talking about stuff like that. But it actually turned out to be a much larger thing. I was learning that these companies are really interested in what we were doing and were to write. And so there was this freelancers marketplace. By happenstance, I met with a VP of talent for a content creation platform. So do you know those platforms? Well, they'll connect talent with brands to like work on campaigns and work on projects. So I had no idea what this company did, and I knew they had a freelancer magazine. So I was like, hey, I'd love to write for that. And I got in touch with him, and he actually put me on an account. So I got my first gig just kind of by luck in some ways, which was really fortunate. And my first month writing for this client, they were ramping up content, and I realized I was making about the same doing freelance as my day job. And my day job was by no means anything glamorous. I was working at an editorial department for a place that made calendars. So they made calendars for like Mattel and all these licensed products, but so I wasn't making a lot in my day job, but I just learned like, hey, like doing this like part-time, I could make a living off of this. And so that's when it clicked. And so from then, I was able to get just more jobs here and there. And a year later, I took a contract job. So I left my full-time job with benefits for this contract job, doing basically writing personal finance stuff full-time, which I thought was a good step. It was a little bit of a risk because like it was a contract job, so there's no guarantee.
And that was going to end, right? It had an end date.
Right. So it was about a year, and So about a month into it, there's all this stuff happening internally I had no idea about. I fired my boss, the guy who hired me, and so they let me go. Yeah, about 1 month into it. It was really scary. Yeah, super scary.
Wow.
Yeah, and so, but the good news was I was going back to that conference for the second time, that same conference. And so I had asked for the time off, I got it, and I went and I got all these leads. And so I was kind of at this place where I could try to do another full-time job. And I did get another full-time job. I got another contract job. It was this an investment company that was going to pay me like 6 figures to proofread. It was crazy, like what they were
Yeah.
willing to pay. So I decided to do freelance. And so I've been doing that 5 years now. And I'm loving it. Yeah. So that's my little like freelancer journey and how I got to do what I'm doing now.
That's amazing. So it's kind of like a few part question. Like what, seems like so far a pretty positive experience, or at least currently. Like what is your overall take on the freelance world? Is freelance work a good idea for everyone? Maybe some of the pros and cons involved in that.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Obviously I'm a little biased toward it's worked for me and it's worked for a lot of people I know.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it is for everyone because I've had friends, colleagues who have tried the freelance thing, maybe out of necessity, like right now, like you lose your job and you take a freelance gig, and it isn't for them. Like, it's with the pros and cons, a big con is that it can be inconsistent, which is a big scary thing.
Hmm.
And so, or they miss their coworkers, whatever, so they go back to the full-time job and they're happier that way, and that's really cool. But I think one thing to note when you're freelancing is that you can always start small, which is kind of what I did for a long time, which is like, if you're not sure if you want to do this full time, especially if you're an artist or creative, you can start with one gig, just start with one project and see how you like it. Because it's really much like tied to your life as a creative. Like, it's a process. There's a lot of experimentation. There's a lot of false starts. But it's a process that's really unique to you. So I think that's one thing that really appealed to me, especially since I've long had an interest in people who are trying to do their own thing and create their own, so to speak. Especially like starting even with Cheapsters and finding people who like, hey, I want to do my own thing. I want to march to my own drum beat, so this is one way I can do it. And so for somebody who wants like autonomy, definitely a pro is the freedom you have in so many ways, the freedom to choose the work you want to do, ideally, choose the clients you want to work with, the projects that speak to you. Those are definitely pros, and you probably hear a lot of that,
Yeah.
you're self-employed too. Yeah. So you creative, you hear that a lot. And you have autonomy with where you work, all that stuff is great. And so, and also it can be in line with your creative goals. So I think of it as a spectrum, I think as creative, as we like to do a lot of things.
Yeah.
We're interested in different things, and I think of the spectrum as you might be doing 2 or 3 different things as an artist. Like maybe you are someone who does, I don't know, as a visual artist, paintings, illustrations, but you also do sculptures, whatever. And as a writer, like myself, I might have my own creative projects like fiction or some side project, but then I also do work that gets paid. So I think if you think of it as a spectrum where it's not like all or nothing,
Right.
as a creator, like, hey, this is something I want to start to offer to the world, freelancer, and then you can kind of start there, which is kind of a less scary way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Before I get into that, I guess the cons are the feast or famine cycles. So we're that, just times when things are super busy, you're like bombarded and flooded with work and self-care and all that. Boundaries go out the window for sure. Like they're
Really. Yeah, and I can imagine also, it's kind of like I think something maybe that people don't necessarily think of is like, I hate to use the word pipeline, but like a sales pipeline, but like essentially like you're constantly having to do biz dev for yourself, like business development, because again, like you mentioned earlier in your story, is you thought you had this contract job for a year and shit happens and it changed really quickly, and it was like, oh, okay, what do I pivot to then next?
Right, exactly. And that's an excellent point you talked about pivoting is a pro and a con with us is that we are kind of masters or the drivers of our own destiny.
Yeah.
And that is a good thing and a bad thing, right? It's like good because we have the ability to pivot, but then
Mhm.
it's on us. It's not
Right.
like a day job, like, hey, this guy's leaving in this department, maybe I'll like get a promotion. There's no boss. You are your own boss. So you have to create those opportunities for yourself.
Yeah.
And like all the business development, like all this carving out time to develop your business is like a whole nother thing. And then like time you spend on like admin and all that stuff, it is part of that. And so I think with the con, it's definitely like you mentioned spending more time developing your business
Hmm.
and also like money stuff. You know, you
Yeah.
have to do more money management. You have to deal with ebbs and flows. You have to pay for your own insurance, and all those are like costs of business, right? So like if you think of it as business, you know, from the beginning, you kind of think of it like, okay, I'm going to have more costs and more time I have to devote to these aspects. Where if I had a day job, you know, you clock in, you do the work, and then you get a paycheck, and you don't have to worry about any of that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, yeah, again, like we're saying, pros and cons, but I think, you know, a lot of creatives are simply just afraid to embark on this freelance journey. I mean, given especially the current economic climate, what um what are some of the opportunities and maybe even challenges you might ask independent creatives to consider? Um, you know,
Yeah. Well, I think right now, like a definite challenge is just everything that's going on with um, unemployment claims and the work stop, you know, businesses shuttering because of this crazy unprecedented time.
mm,
Um, Something to consider with how that might work with freelancing. So I think of it as there are some challenges there because some people may be kind of cutting back or holding on hiring,
mhm,
but then I've seen some places where there's actually more of a demand for freelancers.
mm,
Like in the last few weeks in my world as a writer, there's been a spike in demand for COVID-19 content.
mm,
Uh, and it's not just with money writing, it's healthcare industries. They need more content, they need more work in that area. So there are some industries that are actually growing right now or actually need more of us to help them out. And I think because some businesses are scaling back, they may not hire full time as much. So
mhm.
there might be more opportunities to take on freelance work right now.
Yeah,
So there's an opportunity there, but and right now because a lot of what we have is digital, right?
yeah,
Like and staying at you know self-isolating, quarantine, it's a good time maybe to focus on um, you know kickstarting our business.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
and
it
that can
sounds like this could potentially be, you know, an opportunity if you were looking to start freelancing, where you might kind of, like you said, a little bit of a litmus test, go for one of those maybe potentially freelance gigs and kind of check that out. And yeah, you're very much right. By day, I do, you know, I'm a publicist, and everything is COVID related, and I'm have a pinball client, and somehow I have to, you know, draw that line, make that connection, because yeah, it's, but people are just looking for that type of thing. So this might be the perfect time to start that freelance journey.
yeah, for sure. And especially if you are in a place where like things are at a standstill a little bit, it's a good time to uh, so some of my friends, especially the ones who are just starting out, I've been talking to them a lot more on how to get going. And so for me, I'm going to just for my community, I'm doing like a 30-day type challenge.
Yeah.
And so I do like a small task or a small exercise that to kickstart. And I think anyone can do this on their own. You know, you can kind of create like a plan, like, hey, this week I'm going to work on this. This all things considered, if you need time to just relax and just do nothing too, that's totally cool. I think there's definitely a push for productivity, but if you need time to like freak out or just do nothing, then you should do that too, right? But
Yeah, it's all about the balance, and like just trying to process this kind of like global trauma essentially. So I'm curious, where So let's say I want to take part in this 30-day challenge, or I'm going to challenge myself to potentially start looking for freelance work. Where do you feel is the best place to start pitching like yourself?
Yeah, it can feel really overwhelming, with like
Yeah.
the digital universe is so large. And for me, what's worked has been starting with your community and your own network has been
Okay.
super valuable. So community, just when I started freelancing or trying to do full time, I reach out to my community of like old coworkers, bosses, and then just letting them know, like, hey, I'm starting. I'm available for freelance gigs. This is what I can do. These are things I'm available for. And
Hmm.
if you want, we can talk about how I can help you with, a project you're working on, that kind of thing. And it has worked really well. Like I think when I started doing full time, most of my gigs were from people I knew who knew I was available to do that work, and they would
Hmm.
like, "Hey, Jackie's available." First person to come to mind. And even if it's not someone who can directly hire you, they might know someone,
Hmm.
or they might hear of something like an opportunity. And for me, like being a freelancer has been a lot of pay it forward. Like if somebody gives you a lead and it's not the right lead for you, if you can think of a friend who it would be a better fit for, pass it on to them or give back. I've been so fortunate. I've had friends and colleagues support me in different ways,
Hmm.
either by way of referral or just giving me advice. So leaning on community is really a great place to start. And then another thing is to look at existing sites. Like there's a lot of those freelancer platforms like Fiverr, Upworker, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And even if you don't feel comfortable starting there, you can kind of see what other people, how they package and how they kind of promote what they do. It's a good place to kind of imitate, because learning is imitation, right? So if
Yeah.
you can kind of see what other people are doing, what's working, what people are like highly rated, or they're getting lots of gigs, you can kind of like what are they doing over there that's working, and how can I maybe borrow from that?
Yeah. Do
That's
you,
another good way to start. Um,
yeah, go
and
ahead.
just kind of creating your own platform. Think of it as like an ecosystem for your business. So if you want to start posting work on IG or one of those like Behance or something, or just being more active on social media, those are all great ways to start.
Okay. So Fiverr, any type of like, yeah, sort of like freelance sites. So like outside of, your community where people again have more of this, like they know you, they know your personality, they know your work ethic. So again, either they're more likely to send you a gig or they're more likely to recommend you for a gig. Now sort of like the opposite of that is like if you're just like cold pitching people or cold emailing people, is there what are your recommendations around that? Is there a good
Yeah,
approach
for
or
sure. So yeah, besides going on sites like Fiverr, Upwork, Freelance, or some popular ones, um, uh, uh, one thing you can do is just kind of, I follow a lot of people. So if you're doing like kind of a cold call or like cold pitching, I think
mm-hmm.
they call it LOL in like marketing or something. But just I would follow a lot of companies and try to follow editor or people who might hire. Like so in my world, it would be like a director of content or a director of marketing, and I or follow them on Twitter, follow them on LinkedIn if you can, or connect with them. And then you can start with a courtship. So it's definitely a courtship. I have a friend, Hannah. She's amazing at this. She has a series of emails that she'll send somebody. So there's like an intro email, and just put yourself out there. It doesn't hurt. It couldn't hurt to just like, introduce yourself and show that you have done your research and you know what they're about and what they might need, and
Mm-hmm.
then kind of connect it that way. So it's about connection, right? And it's about matching. So if you can make a connection and if it's a good fit, they might be open to hiring you. And it has worked for my friend Hannah. Like, and sometimes it takes a while. The courtship process might be six emails in. It might be six
Mm-hmm.
months in. It might be a year. But like once you get the ball rolling, they might consider you. And that's happened to me too. Like I may talk to someone and meet with them, and then 1 year, 2 years goes by, and then I'll get like a really great ongoing gig from them. So I think don't be shy. Don't be afraid to just send out an initial hey. I'm here. I've gotten gigs from Instagram DMs too. You just don't know. Like I got a really good client from somebody had an event in my town. I couldn't make it, but I'm like, hey, if you want to collaborate in other ways, we can. And now I'm writing for them on a regular basis. So you just don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's crazy. And yeah, I definitely agree. Doing your homework, again, is going to, especially if it's like a cold pitch, right? It's going to show them your authenticity. It's going to show that person that like, oh, okay, this person clearly gives a crap, because they took the time to go to my LinkedIn. They took the time to go to my Twitter. They took the time to read the company bio, I think those things, definitely don't go unnoticed. So
Yeah, for sure.
doing the homework and again, yeah, like those little friendly reminders. And I'm sure as a writer, I know for myself as a publicist, it's like, it's all about the follow-up. It's very rare, I feel like, for a writer to respond to me on that first email, obviously, because their inboxes are like inundated with all types of projects that they're working on, but it's all about the follow-up. And I think
Yeah.
that
Follow is so important. Yeah, I think it's almost everything. And a viewer mentioned having a good demo reel and a website is also really key. And yes, absolutely. So the follow up and the relationship you have with these prospective companies
Mhm.
is important, but also, yeah, working on your craft, working on your art is definitely really important too. And that's what my blog was for a long time. I didn't have an outlet to showcase my writing, and I had no professional clips. I had writing samples from my website, and
Okay.
my blog was my portfolio for a while. So yeah, it's definitely continuing to work on your craft, making it as your work as strong as possible is super important, and then having it on a site or somewhere where it's professionally like showcased, or
Mhm.
like at least it shows that you're active, prolific. You have what you're offering is really important too. Yeah, somebody
Amazing.
mentioned that, so I wanted to
No, definitely.
emphasize
Yeah, I've
it's
been
very
trying to
important.
scroll through too. I appreciate that. And also, if you guys are just tuning in or have been like sitting here on the live with us, thank you for tuning in. We're here all week with industry professionals. Today I am with Jackie Lamb. I put her website down in there, heyfreelancer.com. Writing about money, financial wholeness educator for artists and freelance creatives. So that's you. That's if you are on here, she is the person who definitely is dropping knowledge on us. What should people that are freelancing, I guess, for the first time expect? Is there like a typical protocol once you've like landed that first gig, or I don't know.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Uh, I think it really does depend on the person. I hate to say that because everyone's journey is unique to them, but I think we can expect to treat it like an experiment.
Okay.
And I think that's the best way to approach it. A lot of people are hesitant or scared to try to, land a freelancing gig because, lots of reasons. Like they don't know if they're doing it right, they're afraid of rejection, all that stuff. But I think just expect that it is it's a process of learning and experimentation, and to expect that of anything. And that will kind of any anxiety you have around not knowing or not doing it right, so to speak, will kind of alleviate,
Yeah.
vanish hopefully. So I
Yeah.
think that might be, and to expect that you're going to not know what you're doing at first, because nobody does, right? When
Yeah.
you're starting out, you just don't, you can't.
Yeah, you're like, there's just trial by fire here. We're just like, yeah, we're learning, flying by the seat of our pants.
Right.
Something I wanted to mention earlier, but was kind of waiting on. Obviously, in this current climate, a lot of people who are fortunate enough to have jobs are working from home. The life of a freelancer, that's pretty much the case, unless you are at the point where you have a co-working space or, something along those lines. You're oftentimes working from coffee shops or from your kitchen table. I'm wondering what kind of advice you have for productivity, because I think that
Yeah.
that's hard, holding yourself accountable to your own
Yeah,
schedule.
that's a tough one, right? And I know like people who are transitioning to work from home, or like they want it, like they only have, like you said, like their kitchen table or a little corner of the living room or their couch even, how to maintain, be productive. I think if they can just find a way to treat it, mark it off in some way, like it
Hmm.
can be like a visual mark off or maybe a more psychological way of making it like this is where I'm going to be working, this is where I'm going to be creating. Um, that is really helpful. And especially if you have roommates or you're living with people or you have kids or you have family, to just create some sense of boundary. I know it might be like, yeah, like the kitchen table or some, makeshift office, but
Right.
to just kind of create the boundary of like, hey, these are my working hours, or this is when I'm here and I'm working, like do not disturb or something like that to just help you.
Yeah.
And this is another like point of experimentation, is figuring out what works best for you. Like, and it can be like how you set up your space. It could be what time of day you work.
Mm.
I'm definitely an early bird, and so I like to get things done. Start my day really early and finish by now. But some people
Yeah.
might be night owls, so they might work that way. Some people like to take like a 2 hour break, a siesta in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
That's cool. Like if you can do it and it works for you, you should. And that's another perk of freelancing, working for yourself, is you have that freedom. And then also like sometimes staggering it, I tend to work 3 days and then take a day off and work 2 days, take a day off. So you kind of play around with that setup, play around with your schedule to see what jives best for you.
Yeah. And I'm sure that's like all based on like, yeah, like what projects you have in the works, what kind of deadlines you're working up against, that whole thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, and kind
Yeah.
of figure out a flow that works with in tandem with obviously like your workload and all the deadlines and all this
Yeah.
stuff.
A couple more questions before we sadly have to wrap up, because I could talk about this for forever. One question that came in here that I thought was pretty interesting. How do you know how much to charge clients? How much free stuff to do?
Oh yeah, for sure. So I'll answer the first one
Mhm.
of how much, how do you know how much free stuff to give away?
Mhm.
And that's really tough because among my like community of freelancers, or some people are like, you should never do anything for free.
Hmm.
You just shouldn't, you know. Um, you shouldn't because you should start to charge something so you can get used to charging. And then some people say, hey, you should maybe do certain things for free.
Mhm.
And I I think it's a value thing. So if it's an opportunity that you think could help you get more work, it's a good exposure thing. I know people are like, don't work for exposure, don't ever do that. I think it depends on you. If it's something that could lead to where you want to go, it might be worthwhile. However, you should set limits and you should set um, some expectations around that. So what are you going to get out of this opportunity if you're going to do this for free or exposure or for a portfolio piece? But I'm not someone who's like, you should never do anything for free. Although I also find it helpful to ask for something small, because then you get into the habit of, because asking for money, especially when you haven't done before and it's for something that's personal or creative, it can be really
Mhm.
hard.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, hey,
Yeah.
I love doing this. I would do it for free. Why would I charge someone? Or maybe you don't feel good enough to charge.
Right.
But I find like just start with asking for something small even is helpful, because then you can get used to the script and the how to do that.
Right.
And then how much to charge? Oh, this is a hard one. I don't think any freelancer I know, no matter how long they've done it, I think they all struggle with this still.
Yeah.
And because there's no set rate. You can't go on Google online and be like, hey, how much should I charge for this?
Yeah.
Even do publicity even, or writing. So one thing that's helpful is you can do some research to see if there's an hourly rate or a set rate. And just know that it really depends. It really depends on that. And also when you're doing research, make sure it's a consultant rate, or make sure it's a freelancer rate, because the
Okay.
rates that are posted are usually like for full timers. Yeah.
Oh.
So it can be actually lower, because you want to charge more when you freelance, because they don't have to pay health benefits or anything. You're paying all that. So you need to calculate that. If you know someone or can be acquainted with someone who works in that field, definitely hit them up and ask them.
Hmm.
Transparency is key. And you'll be surprised that a lot of creatives are pretty transparent with how much they charge because they know how much of a struggle it is not to know. So don't be afraid to ask and be like, hey, I hope I'm not overstepping, but I'm wondering if you had any suggestions on this, if you had any advice on how much to charge. That's great. Because I do see what like, so I'll like look at a publication and I'll see what other writers, who the other writers are, and then I might hit them up actually. And I might ask them, or I might have an idea like, hey, this person writes for a lot of dollar word sites. So maybe that's how much they might get paid for this. Once again, community is important here because we just don't know until like we tap into our sources. There's a lot of free Facebook groups too. We can ask those questions in these freelancing Facebook groups.
And yeah, and I really like how you sort of positioned that question. I think coming at it from, instead of saying like, hey, how much money can I get out of this? Or like, how much money can I charge? It's more of like, hey, I'm looking for your advice. You know, I'm like having trouble gauging this. Can you help guide me? I think is still like so much more of an approachable way to kind of going about asking for money, because that's weird for everybody. Like,
yeah, it's hard for everyone. And other artists understand how hard it is. You know, so it's super challenging. Yeah, but yeah, just don't be afraid because most people have been there or are there and they're willing to talk to you too.
Amazing. So I have one more question and then I'm going to ask if you have any final thoughts. Because I think this is, you know, pretty important. Like, what financial means, if any, should be ready before launching out into the freelance world? Like, do you need to have a savings account, or like with the litmus test of just trying out one, like what does that look like?
For sure. So I want to answer this, I guess, and I was thinking about, there's two camps you might be part of. So the first camp is if you already have a day job and you're thinking of transitioning to doing this full time. For ideally, these are ideals, wish list items. Ideally, you should have some emergency fund. So because like you just have to kind of get used to the flow, you're building your clientele, there's ebbs and flows inevitably. So having like a cushion is ideal. So the more the merrier, of course. So I mean, as much as you can save before you do that, if it's an intentional launch or expansion. So I don't think of it as a launch, it's more like an expansion, of what you're already doing. And then ideally, like I would say you would want to make about 50% of what you need or what 50% of where you want to be. That's just like something that worked for me. So when I decided to do full-time freelance, I was about 50%, but I also was getting more leads. So that energy was there. And I don't mean to be woo about it, but the energy of like, hey, I'm getting more leads, I'm getting more attention or more attraction is actually a good sign that this is maybe a good time for you to expand to full-time. And then the second part, I was thinking of people who might be out of a job or might be doing this out of necessity, or they just want to like experiment with it, is you actually don't need a lot to get started. You don't need to have the best tools. You don't need to have the best equipment. You don't need to start, you know, you can do with very little, you know, in this day and age, you just need your computer or some basic equipment to just get started, you know, because I think what it is like, people who struggle with this perfectionism complex, I know I have, like things have to be perfect for you to succeed is not actually accurate. For you to succeed, you just need to start. So if you have like a phone, I have a friend, he's Stephen Ray Morris. He's a producer.
As a friend, you know Stephen Ray Morris.
Okay, yeah,
we're friends. I know.
Oh, you're friends? Okay. Yeah. Okay, Stephen's great, right? So Stephen Ray Morris, he's a producer of podcasts. So he said, you know, when he first started doing this, he was just using like his phone and some very basic equipment, you know, to get started, and he didn't need fancy stuff, you know. And so he just said to just experiment with the low investment, right? This as little investment as possible when you start. So that way you don't get hung up on like needing to be the best or having the best. Because I think that trips people up. Definitely. Especially when they're like working on like, you know, creative work or whatever. Like you just need to start and get into the flow. Yeah.
Oh, that's so great. I'm glad you know Stephen. He's a love. Yeah, I think that also, right, as artists, we're all kind of in that mindset, right? And I think it comes from a very like we're afraid to be sort of like vulnerable, right? I think that's maybe why a lot of like artists, are even afraid to share their work. So they feel like they're putting a part of themselves out there.
Yes,
So it becomes very personal and kind of close to the heart.
it's
When
so
really
hard.
it's just like, hey, you just need to, I have, trust me, y'all, the internet is full of people that are just doing their thing and like putting themselves out there. So if they can do
Yes,
it, you can do it too.
exactly. You can too. Right.
Yeah.
Great point and eloquently stated. If
Yeah.
other people can put themselves out there and be personal and just put because your heart into your work and just share it,
Yeah.
share it with the world, then you can too. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to resonate with somebody. Like your story, whatever your journey, everything just kind of, we can relate to sort of like the human story, right? I love that.
Yes.
Well, again, like I said, I'm past my time, but I could talk about this for forever. But being that you're a successful freelancer here, making waves, any piece of wisdom that you want to impart upon like our artistic community?
Yeah, absolutely. I think just to piggyback off what you said, to just not be afraid to share your vision, to share a part of you that's very personal to others
Mhm.
and to the world is so valuable, and it's so needed right now. I feel like
Yeah.
in these crazy times, I feel like we want more of that. We want more of that authenticity and that personal side.
Yeah.
And also as artists, you always have the option to share what you want to. If you're not 100% ready, then you can still work on that one aspect, but you
Hmm.
can share something else and you can start small and to not be afraid to
Yeah.
just try. So that's what it's about. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like at least you know that like I kind of feel that way about anything. It's like if I try it and I don't like it, well, then I know that I don't like that and like on to the next.
Right.
But like I could be missing out on something amazing because I just didn't take that opportunity to try.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I have a friend who wrote a great piece for I think it's the New York Times on the cost of rejection.
Mm,
The cost of the fear of rejection, I'm sorry.
yeah.
So, when you fear rejection, there's a cost involved, in terms of an opportunity or something. And like, yeah, if you don't want to do it anymore, if you don't like that, you can scrap it. And that's the joy of freelancing is that the threshold of risk in some ways is very low. Like if
Yeah.
you don't want to do something, you don't ever have to do it again. You can start something new. You can do that too. You have that power and you have that freedom to do that.
That's amazing. Yes. So I looked that up because I know I've followed the New York Times, just getting that in my inbox. Fear of rejection is costing you money. And that's what the title is. So if you guys go read that New York Times article, because that's definitely, I think, completely spot on, the fear of rejection.
Yeah, there's a cost.
But Jackie, I can't wait to connect with you offline. What great advice. I really appreciate you being here today. Like I said, I could chat about this for forever. But you guys, I appreciate you guys also tuning in, watching Jackie and I just conversate for the last 30 minutes. Appreciate all the questions that came in. Tried to get to as many of them as possible. But we are going to be back again tomorrow. Like I said, don't get sick of this face. I've been coming at you all week. But we're back here tomorrow at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. But follow along to Raw Artists for all the updates on that. And you guys stay safe. Remember to wash your hands, social distance, and have an amazing Thursday. Again, we double check that on the calendar, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you,
Thank you.
Jackie.
Thank you, Megan. Thanks for having
Bye.
me.
Definitely. I loved it.